The media's story is this. Channel 7's story is this. There's a factory that produces nickel in Indonesia. In that factory, 21 people died. However, Channel 7 and the reporter that reported on this story and that ambushed and attacked me, they knew that this factory, and in fact most nickel factories in Indonesia, does not produce nickel for electric cars. It's the wrong grade of nickel and it can't be used in electric car batteries. So not only did Channel 7, who are paid for by Toyota and other companies, possibly particularly oil companies, not only did they create a fake narrative about nickel and electric cars and the deaths that are occurring as a result of it, they also basically stitched me up. It was a hatchet job from start to finish. They came in with a plan, and unfortunately, the truth is, I didn't see it coming. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Electric Viking. I'm sure you've all heard the news. Even in America and the UK, you guys have been seeing what's been happening here in Australia. It's been insane. I've got to say, thank you to my wife, Shanna, who has stage 4 colorectal cancer. She's been in a lot of pain lately and she's helped me comprise a response. I know many of my Australian viewers have been looking out for this one. My response to the Channel 7 Spotlight segment that aired heavily edited footage of me and misrepresented the EV industry. Channel 7 is one of the biggest news channels here in Australia. In this video, I'm setting the record straight about what happened in the shown press conference, debunking the completely inaccurate claims about electric car batteries, and shedding light on why this hit piece aired when it did. The timing is critical. I'm going to start with the claims about electric cars and nickel use in batteries. The segment was ostensibly about the environmental and human costs of nickel mining for EV batteries. Yes, nickel mining, especially in Indonesia, as highlighted, has serious environmental challenges and, in some cases, abuses that do need addressing. No one, least of all EV advocates like myself, want dirty nickel in our supply chain. I've done more to promote lithium iron phosphate batteries that do not use nickel than anyone else I know. I believe I've done more than 50 videos on that issue. But Liam Bartlett's narrative leapt to an extreme claim that all EVs rely on nickel, therefore implicating all EVs in this dirty mining. That is not correct. In fact, that is a straight up lie. Many EVs, in fact, most EVs do not use nickel-based batteries at all. A huge portion of modern electric cars use lithium iron phosphate batteries or even newer chemistries like sodium ion. These contain zero nickel. LFP battery technology has surged in popularity because it uses iron and phosphate, which are common materials, and avoids critical minerals like nickel and cobalt, which actually are kind of expensive. By 2022, lithium iron phosphate batteries accounted for roughly 27% of the global EV battery market, up from only 7% in 2018. However, that share has grown rapidly. In China, by far the world's largest EV market, more than 65% of EVs were running on lithium iron phosphate batteries in 2023. And the share hit 70% in 2024. It will be much higher again in 2025. BYD is now the largest EV battery producer in the world, and their blade batteries don't use any nickel or any cobalt. Even Tesla and Kia use those batteries. Globally, recent data shows lithium iron phosphate now commands about 60% of the global EV battery market, and its capacity is rising. In other words, only around 1/3 of EVs worldwide still use nickel-based batteries. The nickel-containing chemistries like NMC or NCA. Liam Bartlett's blanket assertion that every EV uses nickel was completely dishonest, and he knew it, and intentionally misleading. The industry is very much aware of nickel and cobalt supply issues and is actively shifting to alternatives that cost less. Electric vehicles are not uniformly dependent on nickel, as the show claimed they are. I've long advocated for nickel-free battery technology. One of the strangest parts of the TV segment was the insinuation that I, as an EV influencer, was ignoring and intentionally covering up the problems with nickel mining. This is what the TV show attempted to claim, that I, at this point in my life, have some sort of vested interest in covering up this nickel issue. In reality, I have created dozens of videos promoting lithium iron phosphate batteries and their environmental and safety advantages. In fact, I know personally of many people who have bought cars with lithium iron phosphate batteries as a result of my videos. I regularly talk about how lithium iron phosphate and emerging battery types reduce the need for difficult mining of materials like nickel and cobalt. It's on the public record that I celebrate EVs like Tesla's standard range models, which have LFP, many Chinese EVs with LFP, and others like Kia that use LFP precisely because they're more ethical and sustainable and actually last longer than NMC batteries. So the idea that I would try to shut down discussion about nickel is, well, it's just utterly absurd. I welcome it, in fact. What I object to is how the discussion was framed as an attack with misinformation. Now, here's the thing. Nickel's biggest use is not EVs, it's steel. This context was sorely missing in Bartlett's story. Yes, EV demand for nickel is growing, but still the majority of global nickel output, around 70%, is used to make stainless steel, not batteries. As of a couple of years ago, nickel in batteries only accounted for about 5% of global nickel demand. Even with EV growth, that percentage is rising, but it remains a very small number compared to stainless steel. The dirty nickel operations in Indonesia's supply chain supply predominantly the stainless steel industry at massive scale. So if one is truly concerned about the human rights and emissions issues of nickel mining, as we all should be, or at least the nickel mining happening in Indonesia, singling out electric cars as the key villain behind nickel mining problems is obviously extremely misleading. It ignores the broader industrial demand. The reality is we need to clean up mining practices across all industries and also accelerate battery innovation to reduce reliance on these materials. Liam Bartlett appears to have zero interest or concern with stainless steel, which accounts for 70% of global nickel use. The Spotlight story also showed some edited footage of a quick interaction that I had with, he says he's a journalist, at the Sydney Electric Car Expo in November last year. Here's what they didn't show in the Spotlight story. The press conference at the expo included an announcement from Minister Chris Bowen here in Australia that the government was approving vehicle-to-grid technology, or V2G for short, or V2X, or vehicle to home. Anyhow, you get the picture. This means Aussies can soon use their electric car batteries to power their homes and to send electricity back into the grid, which will help them save money on electricity and help Australia's grid. This is a game changer. Many across the industry are saying it will be a revolution. Germany is calling for the same thing. Many countries around the world are basically begging car manufacturers to put vehicle to grid on their cars. I attended the show as an EV advocate to present, but also to learn about this policy milestone and to ask the minister questions. The atmosphere was initially positive and focused on clean energy innovation. But before a single journalist could ask questions about this media release, this information, Liam Bartlett from Spotlight completely ambushed the minister with questions about Indonesia and nickel mining. The minister attempted to answer, but Bartlett kept going. He was absolutely relentless, angrily attacking him and hogging the microphone, just completely. The rest of us in the media, including myself, couldn't get a single word in. I hadn't spoken at all yet, but Bartlett's approach forced the minister to end the session early. The minister was like, wow, I can't believe what I'm dealing with here. And he didn't know what to say to to Liam because he was just bamboozled by the claims Liam was making, which seemed, to be honest, outlandish at the time. As the minister walked away, Bartlett snapped at me for some bizarre reason, saying I was the reason the session ended, which was absolutely absurd. I hadn't said a single word to the minister at that point. I hadn't been able to. Anyone at the show can attest to that. If you want verification of my claims, ask the show's organizer, Ray, and he'll tell you what actually did happen. But here's what happened next. I walked alongside the minister as he was leaving and asked a quick question about vehicle to grid. He answered, and I thanked him, and I walked off. Now, Spotlight tried to make this appear as though I was shielding the minister from Liam. I was protecting him from the Spotlight program, which was going to expose him for the evils of what he was doing. Well, obviously, this wasn't correct at all. I was simply asking Minister Chris Bowen a question. You can email him yourself and ask him if that's true, and I'm sure he'll tell you it was. However, Bartlett was still trying to chase the minister down, and security had to push him back. Then, as I headed to the stage, the live stage for our next live show where I'd be speaking, Bartlett angrily stormed up to me. I didn't even see him coming, to be honest, stuck his finger into my chest quite hard and started shoving me while yelling, "Who the hell are you? You're nobody," over and over. I was shocked. I was completely blindsided by his aggression, and I couldn't understand why he even had a problem with me at all. The Spotlight segment flipped it all around. They edited the footage to make it look like I approached him, which obviously wasn't the case at all, and anyone in attendance will confirm that. That's claiming that I came at him was a lie. The truth is he came at me. And his crew, his film crew, was 100% ready to catch what was about to happen next. He kept calling me a nobody, saying I had no right to be there, and he pushed me for about 30 seconds until I snapped back. I was getting a little angry, I've got to admit. I said something like, "Let's go outside, tough guy. Let's sort this out." But then I realized I'd made a mistake. It was intentional goading. His crew was filming, hoping I'd react, and I realized it, and eventually I walked away instead. The car show's organizer apologized to me for Liam's actions, saying he was a bully who had hijacked the car show and essentially ruined the afternoon. This incident actually occurred 5 months ago. The timing of the story raises key questions about motives and the context behind the Spotlight piece. Why did they do it, and why did they do it now? A couple of points for you to consider. Liam Bartlett, before returning to journalism, worked for Shell Oil Company for 4 years. Shell, of course, is one of the world's largest fossil fuel companies. There's nothing inherently wrong with having worked in another industry, but it's relevant background when considering a topic like electric vehicles versus big oil. Viewers have a right to at least be aware of the journalist's history and his clear and obvious connections to oil companies. Channel 7, the network airing Spotlight, is owned by Kerry Stokes, a billionaire who has well-known political ties and clear business interests. Under Stokes' watch, 7 West Media has even made political donations to major parties. It's one of the very few television stations in the world to continue doing this. With the federal election just a month away and climate and energy policy being hot issues, well, one can't help but wonder about the timing of a prime-time piece that could sow massive doubt and anger about electric cars and clean energy initiatives. Again, these connections are relevant context. One of Channel 7's biggest sponsors is Toyota. Greenpeace says that Toyota has spent more money than even most oil companies in the world to slow down the adoption of electric cars. That's sad. The Spotlight program's framing, even calling the segment the Great EV Con, or emphasizing the so-called unsettling truth behind the electric vehicle industry, reveals a very clear narrative. And that narrative is the destruction of the EV industry. It wasn't a balanced look at both the promises and challenges of EVs. It was simply presented as a scandal to shock the audience. Maximum shock value was what they were after. Sensationalism, it can attract eyeballs, and it clearly did. It worked. but it often leaves viewers completely misinformed. By contrast, my goal with the Electric Viking channel has always been to inform and educate on both the pros and cons of EV technology without sensationalism. To be honest, that polarizes a lot of people. A lot of people want to hear that everything's great. They want to hear that their brand's great. And I have, it's fair to say, alienated many car companies who I have targeted and singled out to say that they're not supporting electric cars, or their electric cars that they're making are not all that good. And I believe some of them have actually taken offense to that, and maybe even part of this, I don't know. It feels like I was used as a prop in the story to craft the angle they were obviously looking for. But this only strengthens my resolve to continue sharing accurate information to the public, and I'm not going to stop. Even with all these commenters threatening me, you know what? I'm not going to give up. EVs are part of a cleaner, smarter future. And a balanced and factual discussion is essential if Australia is to move towards cleaner energy. The truth is, what matters to me more than anything else is that we can say to our children, when we go, we left the world a better place for them, not a worse place. Electric vehicles are not an environmental con, and they're not a cover-up. They are a crucial technology to reduce tailpipe emissions and transition to clean energy, while we simultaneously work on cleaning up supply chains. Both can be true. We can push for EV adoption and demand, responsible mining, and more sustainable battery chemistries. I've always maintained this balanced view. Speaking at today's Vehicle Pollution Forum, Ms. Claire Walter and Dr. Kelvin revealed these details. 11,105 premature deaths in adults per year from pollution, particularly from engine exhausts. 12,210 cardiovascular deaths per year. 6,840 respiratory hospitalizations per year, and 86,000 active asthma cases per year. Since this segment aired on mainstream media and has been shared all around the world, I've been bombarded with thousands of hate messages from Aussies who bought into Spotlight's fabricated story. I get it. Sensational TV, it can trick people. And in this case, it has most certainly worked. People who watch my channel and know my values were able to see that there was context missing and the facts, they didn't add up. I want to thank you to everyone who took the time to explain to others in comments and try to clear up those facts. But others who don't know as much about this technology were completely misled by this fabricated narrative. This experience, to be honest, has been pretty difficult, but it's a reminder of why critical thinking and fact-checking, actually checking the facts first is extremely important. Whether it's me, a government minister, or a TV reporter making a claim, always question, always verify. Don't accept edited TV snippets or online posts at face value. If they don't square with common sense or larger facts, in this case, a bit of critical thinking would reveal that an EV YouTuber probably wouldn't randomly shut down a press event, and that not all EVs use nickel batteries as was claimed. I'm committed to having a rational, factual-based discourse about electric cars, no matter what that costs, whether it's damage to my personal reputation online from big media or fossil fuels trying to smear me. No matter what it is, the mission is more important. And this, honestly, means everything to me. So does your support. Thank you. Bye-bye.